In this week's Motor Week, Richard Hammond sets pulses racing when he tests two mouth-watering cars from Lotus, the Elise and the Exige. Ken Gibson goes upmarket down to the supermarket in the ultimate prestige car, a £300,000 Bentley. Plus Ian Royal gives us tips and advice on buying a second-hand Mitsubishi Shogun. But first... No. Driving this car makes me feel as if I want to wear a catsuit. No. And this car should really be kept in a cave infested with bats rather than a garage. It may look like a car from a very famous film and TV series, but from some angles it looks like a Volvo estate. Based upon its little sister, the Z3 convertible, the M Coupe's unusual and refreshing styling will leave people in no doubt that you're definitely not one of the crowd. This car is brilliant fun to drive. It's like a boy car. You feel it under your foot. It's quite, you've got to give it quite a boot when you low down, when you're driving quite slowly. Give it a kick, but you don't mind because, you know, it responds, it shoots off. It's got that lovely gurgle, really nice roar. I think the steering wheel is too big though. I feel like I'm driving a big truck. And also, the steering is really, really light. So even though you feel like you're heading to a corner really fast, you turn the wheel and it responds, you know, really, really just too light and too quick. What else do we like about it? It's like a Z3, but with a roof on. Now, with the roof on, it makes the chassis much stiffer, so the ride and the handling is much, much better. We like that. And don't ask me why, but it's got 4 exhausts. Not 1, 2, 3, but 4. That means it's a boy car. Which girl in her right mind would drive around in a car with 4 exhausts? But saying that, it's good fun. And you know, it moves and it makes a great noise. Who gives a damn about 4 exhausts? It really makes you want to drive like a hooligan. It's really fast and furious. It makes you want to put your foot on the accelerator and press it really hard. This tends to annoy lots of people who are on the road with you. I don't know what it is about this car, but other people don't like it. Maybe they're jealous, maybe they don't like the look of it. I don't know, but you overtake someone and you find they're shaking their fist at you and things like that. Who knows? Strangely enough, you've got to be between 5'8" and 5'9" to drive this car successfully. If you're any taller than that, you can't get the seat far enough back and your knee gets trapped against the panel in here. And if you're any smaller like me, when you depress the clutch pedal, your heel's actually off the floor, which is really quite uncomfortable. The perfect British summer's day. To be honest, how many times a year can you actually use a convertible car in this country? Not many. That's why this car is so practical. It's also got loads of boot space in the back and it's a right monster. It's a sports car that's practical and it's perfect for the British summer weekend away. See you later.
Lotus endured a pretty turbulent time in the 90s, passed like the parcel at a kiddie's party from General Motors ownership to the failed Bugatti outfit and onto Proton. When the original Elise was launched 4 years ago, the company's future depended upon it being a great car, which, fortunately, it was and still is in the 21st century, when Lotus is thriving.
With Vauxhall VX220 snapping at their heels, Lotus have taken the time to update their Elise. Producing a follow-up to one of the great cars of the 90s was never going to be an easy task, and this week we find out whether they've managed it as we test drive the new Lotus Elise. And to brighten up these winter months, just for the fun of it really, we brought along one of the last evolutions of the previous Elise, the Racebrawn Exige.
Now, whilst the previous model Elise was, thank you, enormous fun to drive, its looks were really not to everybody's taste. I'm not saying it was ugly, just a bit soppy looking, and certainly with none of the menacing road presence that its performance really deserves. So this new version has been toughened up. It's got a more aggressive front end with these slanted snake eyes. The sides have been more sculpted and it's got a more waspish waist, which in turn makes the rear look more beefed up. And then at the very rear end, there's definitely something of the forthcoming production supercar, the M250. When they set out to design the original Elise, practicality wasn't just at the bottom of the wish list, it wasn't on there at all.
At least that's certainly what you'd be left thinking after you spent half an hour or so wrestling with the canvas roof poppers and Prescott's on the previous Elise. On the dismal day as well, some drivers have claimed to experience anything from a few drifts getting through to entire waterfalls. This though is the new Elise and things have been improved, so it gets a new roof.
Well, it may have been improved, but it's still not exactly a doddle. Right, now, getting in. With the previous model, you did have to be a bit of a contortionist. But for this new one, well, it's hardly easy, but the doors are wider and lower and longer. And more importantly, this sill is a lot narrower. And there's good news for all those hardened sports car fans, namely idiots who insist on driving all year round with the roof off, even in winter, because the seats are now finished in this supposedly easy, quick-drying trim, which means at least it will have had a chance to dry out before you've had a chance to get your wax jacket off and towel down your beard. Good luck. Some things thankfully haven't changed, and amongst them is the seat of the pants feel of the Elise. Because it's so light, there's no need for things like power steering to get in the way. Between the communication between you and the tarmac, everything is transferred straight through to your fingers and literally to the seat of your pants. You can feel what's going on in every corner of the car, which is all part of the fun of driving. Whilst the old model had a reputation for superb handling, deservedly so, it could get a little bit skittery, particularly if you were backing off the throttle into a tight bend. They reckon to have remedied that with improvements to the handling of the new car, and it is still superb. There is a little less noise coming through from the engine, which seems quite a bit of a shame to me. I like that raucous feel, but again, this is oriented slightly more towards usability, I think, but you don't sacrifice any of that handling and performance. A good driver will be able to drive it to and hold it on the limit, but if, like me, you prefer to drive a little more flamboyantly, you might not ultimately go as fast, but I'm not in a race, I just want to have fun, then the Elise is superb because it's one car you really can hurl around with as much mad abandon as you like. You can moan all you like about the practicality of clambering in and out of it, and the engine noise as well. In fact, it might be as practical as an ashtray on a motorbike, but for a little over £22,500, it's a sharply focused sports car for people who place driving pleasure as their #1 priority. But if the new Elise is still a little bit too soft for you, why not try one of these? It's the Exige based on the old Elise, and it is wild. What you get is a road-going replica of the old Elise race car. So it looks like a race car, it sounds like a race car, and it goes like a race car. Obviously, the numero uno dominating feature when you're driving the Exige is the engine, mostly because it's in here with you, sitting on your left shoulder like a para. It's loud, raucous and very hot. You physically feel its presence in the heat it gives off. Mind you, one good point for comfort, you've got a hardtop, cosy. Peer through the Ferrari 360 style Perspex cover over the engine and you'll see the same Rover K-Series 1.8 litre engine used in the Lotus 340R. In this particular trim, it'll develop 177 brake horsepower, dash from 0 to 60 in about 4.7 seconds, thank you very much, and onto a top speed of 136. That should do nicely, sir. The rear wing isn't just to look pretty, which I'm not sure if it even does, but it does give you additional downforce at the back, and there's front skirting to give the same effect. And overall, okay, so the shape is based on the old Elise. This is not a soppy looking car, it's much more purposeful and aggressive looking. This has serious presence on road or track. Unlike the Elise, the back end of which will step out quite quickly if you lift off the throttle on the way into a bend, in the Exige it's set up rather differently. It just grips and grips and grips right up to the limit. Invincible you might think, but no. In fact, this car really is set up much more like a proper race car for proper grown-up race drivers, not idiots like me. But being a race car obviously does not mean it doesn't handle. It does, right up to the limit. It is fantastic. You just need a bit of space to practice, because every now and again you'll get it into such a tangle that even a really talented driver couldn't pull it out. At least that's my excuse. Oops. As a road car, in fact, the £10,000 premium over the standard Elise is hard to justify, but it is ultimately a toy for petrol heads. And if Brands Hatch or Silverstone track days feature in your diary, then this is the car to have. It's been great in recent years to see the resurgence of interest in two-seater sports cars. But whereas some of the big major manufacturers mess about making sure there's luggage space and they're comfy enough on long journeys to accommodate Aunt Agatha's piles, it's really good to see Lotus still making proper, no compromises sports cars. Sure, if you go for the Elise, there is enough room on board for a spare change of underwear. If you go for the Exige, there isn't even that. Ironic really, because this is the car where you're likely to need it. It is a serious tool for driving fast. If you are lucky enough to be considering buying either of these, all I can say is you are going to need a very big toy box to accommodate your new toy. If either was mine, I don't think I'd ever put it away, ever.
After the break, Ken goes shopping in a Bentley. Plus there's more used car buying tips from Ian Royal.
We've all dreamed about waking up one morning and winning the lottery, when money no longer matters. You know what I'd do? I'd go out and I'd buy myself, first of all, the most extreme car money could buy. Then I suppose I think I'd quite like to have hair again. That would be very nice. Well, here goes for the instant dream hairstyle. And what do you think about the car? Not so sure about the extreme weather, but I'm sure you'll agree this is one seriously extreme motor car. In fact, it's a very extremely rare car. It's a Bentley Continental T personal commission, one of only one ever built. It would cost you roughly £300,000. The idea of it was it's Bentley showing just how personal you can get with the car of your dreams. It's sort of like the motoring equivalent of a Savile Row's finest suit. So let's see if this suit fits me. Welcome to the cosseted world of Bentley. I'm going to lose the wig because it doesn't fit the car. Everywhere you look in this cabin, it oozes class. First thing that hits you is this amazing dashboard that looks as if it's come direct from a jet. And you may have thought you'd seen leather in cars before, but not leather like this. We're talking quilted leather, hand-stitched. And how about this little touch? An embroidered family motto on the headrest. That'll set you back £300. Just think of it as a nice holiday in Torremolinos. Everywhere you look is a statement and tribute to craftsmanship. It takes the Bentley team just over 3 months to hand build this car. That's enough about how it looks. Let's start it. And in fact, that's the one failing. It's got this very tacky red starter button. Everything about this Bentley is big, monster big. like the 6.7 litre engine, which will propel you from 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, and should the old bill allow, all the way up to 170. It's got a sports mode that when you suddenly hit the pedal, we have liftoff. At over 20 foot long, handling the Continental T on B roads and even A roads should be a bit like wielding a super tanker down a river. But it's surprisingly nimble on the road. It actually handles very, very well. Feedback is good, and you feel very much at ease with the road. It's a type of car that enjoys demanding roads despite its size. The trouble with supercars is you never ever see them doing anything normal. When was the last time you saw a Bentley at the local supermarket? Harrods maybe, but supermarket? It's not on, is it? No, I've had a look. There's nowhere to park. I'll need at least 3 spaces. I'll get somebody else to do the shopping. Bye. I hate to keep harking on about the old everything's big on this car, but I've just looked at the fuel gauge and I need refueling. And that's going to cost just over £80. £80. But there again, if you can afford £300,000, I don't suppose 80 is worth worrying about. The fuel I'm putting in now will take this beast just about 400 miles if you're lucky, at just over 12 to the gallon. Put £85 worth into a Super Mini, it would take you probably 5 goes to fill it up, and you'd get at least 1,200 miles. Having filled this machine up, I think I've just about got enough money left for a bite at my favourite eating place. Here it is. The thing I like about these Bentleys are you get personal service wherever you go. Thank you very much, my dear. £300,000 really is a ridiculous amount of money for any car. But there again, the average Bentley owners usually have at least 6 other cars, including a Ferrari and a Porsche. And if you want to be more sensible, you could always buy 30 Ford Focuses and give one to all your family and friends. Well, it's the end of an absolute dream day. Only trouble is, I've decided I like the good life, and I've decided I've got to have one of these. But the only way I've got any chance of doing that is by going to buy an awful lot of lottery tickets, filling in the pools, and buying some premium bonds. Wish me luck.
Now, Mitsubishi were probably one of the leaders in the 4x4 trend when they launched their original Shogun, and to me this has a Tonka toy look to it. It's beefy, it's rugged, it's not a car that you want to get into an argument with. And if you choose the 5-door long wheelbase like this along with the diesel engine, don't expect 30 or 40 to the gallon, more like early 20s if you're lucky. This is one heavy car. Mitsubishi launched this generation of the Shogun way back in 1991, and it's been hugely successful for them. And we'd probably see many more on our roads if it wasn't for the import limit. It's very roomy inside and comfortable, but lots and lots of tacky plastic, and in some Shoguns, fake wood let it down. But you do get the option of 2 extra seats in the back, which are very useful. You also get on the dash an inclinometer and an altimeter, all very useful. Now, this is a 94 M-Reg with average miles of about 55,000. It is a manual, however, we would recommend the auto as the better bet. Now, when it was new, this car cost £23,000. One thing the Shogun is good at is holding its residuals. Now, it's probably worth, for this car, somewhere about £9,000 to £9,500.
One thing it hasn't got though is the diamond option pack, which would affect its value, and principally that gave you leather and air conditioning, although this car has got a power sunroof. Mitsubishi recently revamped the Shogun, brought it more up to date and restyled it, but it keeps its familiar look. These vehicles are very reliable and useful if you do need to go off-road. So if a 4x4 is what you're after, well, the Mitsubishi Shogun is one of the best to drive, barring something like the latest BMW X5. You of course sit very high, you get a very commanding view of the road ahead. The ride is comfortable and smooth, and the steering is surprisingly sharp and responsive. You do need to work these diesel engines hard though to make any sort of rapid progress. So what should you pay for a Shogun? An early car on a J plate with high mileage, about £6,500. A P-Reg 2.8 diesel 5-door, £11,500. Petrol Shoguns tend to be slightly cheaper. A 94 3-litre V6 with 60,000 miles costs £8,000. Now all these prices are for cars sold privately. The economy on petrol models is not great. Expect around late teens as an average, but they are quicker and more powerful. Now, if you're looking for a Shogun at the moment, we think the vital point is to watch out for the many imported models which are now on the market. Now, these will be badged as either Pajeros or Monteros, and although they may be cheaper generally than UK cars, there may be certain risks attached to buying an imported one. So, go for a UK car, you'll find very few problems with something like this, and £9,500 for a car like this is a lot of car for the money. That's this week's used car tip, the Mitsubishi Shogun.
In next week's Motor Week, it's showtime again as we set our automotive sights on the International Motor Show at Geneva, featuring new cars, concepts and all the inside gossip. So be sure to join us for what promises to be a motoring extravaganza.